All right, so it looks like we are going live right now. Let's see if I wait. I want to wait for a group of people to show up.
Sure.
Right now, let's see. Just making sure that we have. Okay, so right now I'm just we have 2 people. Let's see if we can get it to 10, and that's going to give me an indication that we have a group of people watching. And just sometimes, let me see something. Awesome. 9 people. All righty. So looks like we are on. I'm going to make sure I ask the audience. The audience can hear us. Can you guys hear us loud and clear? Let us know if you can hear us. Testing. Can you hear Damon and I loud and clear? Before we embark on this awesome conversation, let me know in the chat if you can hear Damon and I. All right, loud and clear. Just want to make sure there's no echo and there's no technical issues before we embark on this very important discussion. All right. Let me see. Just waiting for a few more people to join. 14 of you.
I was going to say.
Go for it.
I was going to say, I have no doubt your broadcast rig is pretty good. I'm most worried about whether I'm echoing or reverb or whatever. So.
Can you guys hear Damon? Is he clear? What you just heard from him? Just let us know in the comment section real quick if you heard Damon loud and clear. Let's see if anyone can answer. Yeah, it's part of the thing, you know. We got to make sure that we're not wasting our time here. Okay, Mitch is saying yes, he heard you. So I am assuming everyone else can hear Damon and I loud and clear today. And so I want to make sure I say the following. This is a video that Damon and I have been talking about for some time. I wanted to make sure that I had him in here on my channel for 2 reasons. One, to answer my questions as well as your questions. So if you have any questions for Damon, make sure you write him on the comment section, and I'm going to highlight him so he can address any questions you may have about Von Schweikert loudspeakers. So here's what I need from you before we get started. I need you all to hit that like button. I need you guys to subscribe to the channel. It is important that we have a nice group of people today to really make the most efficient use of our time today. It is Sunday. It is a holiday weekend here in the United States of America. So I don't want to take up a lot of Damon's time. He actually went to the factory just to be available for us today. Okay. So if you have any questions that are focused with regards to loudspeaker design in general, things that you may want to know, which I'll ask him some questions in regards to that as well. If it's about loudspeaker design, if it's anything in general about loudspeakers, not other brands, but just loudspeaker in general. And if it's something specific about Von Schweikert speakers that maybe you're not clear about, you want some clarification from Damon himself, make sure you just ask me. Ask in the chat room. I will make sure he answers your questions. But again, we want to keep it clean. We want to keep it healthy. We want to focus primarily on his brand, Von Schweikert loudspeakers. All right. So, Damon, welcome again to my channel. Thank you for making time for my audience and I. It's really kind of you to give us the opportunity on this beautiful weekend. I'm sure California, sunny California right now, of course. It's very humid here in Florida. It's not the way you felt it when you were here. It's brutal right now. So it's not too nice. But anyway, so I want to get right into it. I got a couple of questions that I have already written up for Damon so that he can begin to really do a deep dive when it comes to his brand, Von Schweikert loudspeakers. So Damon, first question for you is, what is the loudspeaker design philosophy that makes your brand, Von Schweikert speakers, so special?
Well, okay. First off, Jay, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I can't tell you how much Gary Leeds, my partner, and I appreciate the attention you've given our brand. It's meant a lot to us. So I'm happy to come in on a Sunday and answer these questions. But I'll try and keep it concise. I mean, I could rattle on for several hours about what I think is different about loudspeaker design for us. I'll start by saying, first and foremost, all the technology that we're employing today has been developed by my father initially, and by our partner designers since then. Over 50 years now. It was 1975 when we first started building and designing and producing loudspeakers as a family. And Von Schweikert Audio has been here for 25 years now. So so it's been a while. But the general premise is, my father developed this theory back in college when he was at Caltech. Is the purpose of a loudspeaker is to inversely decode what a microphone encodes. It's just translating the information given, and with very little footprint from the signature of the loudspeaker or whatever. So obviously lowering distortion is tantamount to everything we do, whether it's in the cabinet, the signal path, the network topology, the network design, the transducers, you name it. It's we're looking at every aspect that could do that. And by focusing on lowering those things, well, it's trite, but your design is never better than its weakest link. So, a lot of good marketing companies kind of simplify what makes a good loudspeaker, but the truth is you have to be good at every part of it to be good at any of it. So that's our focus. I mean, time alignment and phase coherence is extremely important. I think we've demonstrated over the decades. And by the way, I believe in a tree from the fruit it bears. So talk is cheap, words are wind, and please look at our decades of performance in our designs for proof of everything I'm saying. But I think one of the compliments I've heard and I take a lot of value in is the fact that you can stand a foot away from a Von Schweikert and you're not hearing individual drivers. I mean, that has a lot to do with the effort we put into driver integration, and we have some designs that have 13 drivers on a channel. We're not afraid of integrating drivers, and I think that speaks a lot to how we do speaker design. My father called that network methodology that we use GAIN, or Global Access Integration Network. Again, trying to create that spherical wave launch from dynamic drivers in a box enclosure, right? Trying to create that wave launch. We also have the air network, or ambient inverse replication, which is that tweeter array on the back of the sevens, which feel out the higher frequency portion of that wave launch. And the proof in the pudding, when you listen to a Von Schweikert, is you can sit off axis, even outside the triangulation of the center seat and loudspeakers, and there's an image there. You can go up between the speakers. The image is there. The tonality, the linear tonality across the frequency spectrum is there. All that stuff is based on my dad's initial foundational principles of phase coherence and time alignment and that spherical wave launch. In addition to that, we've developed several different new technologies. I say new in air quotes. We've had them for 20 years, and you're experiencing them in your system now, the foundation technology. And I know we'll get into that in more detail, but ultimately, it doesn't matter how linear your speaker is in the test environment. It matters how linear it is in your room, in your room, in your room. Like it's about room integration. And, we're not EQing the speaker. The speaker ships flat from the factory. what we're doing is we're adjusting the wave, the amount of amplitude across the frequency spectrum in the most challenging region, which is typically the bass. And we do that in the room during setup. It's a one and done to get flat response, and then you forget about it because it's set up, it's integrated. But it is a big game changer in that not only will, in my opinion, you get better bass performance than you would without it, but it changes how you set up the system. So, typically bass is the most difficult thing to integrate. It tattletales on the fact that you're listening to a stereo and not live music, or not, what we would consider just organic music. And now you can set up for, let's say, best imaging in the room, and then dial the bass flat to that spot, because that often isn't where the best bass is. And the other thing is too, is lifestyle. I've set up so many systems where it's a multi-purpose room. It's not a dedicated sound room, so the speakers can only come out so far in the room to be acceptable. And it's a no compromise. You still get tight, deep bass all the way down because of this technology. So while we've been doing it for 20 years, and we are on the 4th generation of this technology, it is relatively new in people that aren't familiar with von Schweikert becoming familiar with it and starting to accept it. And I would say case in point is the newest speaker that we did, the VR30 that we launched in November. We're on we're already starting the 3rd build of them. And the first 2 runs were completely 100% with foundation. So people have the option, but they're choosing foundation once they understand it.
Got it. I actually will say that I have owned other speakers in the past that displayed the rear array or rear mounted drivers. One of them was the Wilson Audio XLF, followed by the XVX, and also the Sonos Faber AIDA, the Sonos Faber SE17s, right? So I am a fan of that type of loudspeaker design because I think there is so much more information that is displayed with this type of speaker configuration. So when I heard and I saw the first von Schweikers back in like 2019, I think it was, at Capital Audio Fest, and you were always partnering with VAC, I was blown away by the submersive feeling that the speakers have, this feeling that you're inside a bubble of sound where it's coming at you from all angles. It's so three-dimensional. And one of the biggest attributes that I have always been a fan of when it comes to your loudspeaker is the musicality. I have never heard a von Schweikert speaker sound analytical, dry, edgy, kind of like an MRI machine, for lack of a better word, where you are feeling as if the speaker is just reading you something from a teleprompter rather than singing to you, right? And I've always been attracted to that aspect of the von Schweikert loudspeaker.
Thank you.
When I first heard the Ultra 7s, the way they were meant to be heard, that would be in Munich a few years ago with you there. And I believe, I think Greg Weaver played this song, Cat People, I think it was called. This album.
Yeah, it's a great track.
That blew my mind. And so after that, the rest was history. I knew it was a matter of time before the stars aligned, and I was able to be in front of an Ultra 7 in my own listening space, because to me, that's really the best way to assess a speaker and have a qualified opinion about anything, is when you live with something, right?
Absolutely.
So show conditions are just a rough draft, oftentimes an indication that something may have potential and that maybe you should pursue it by going to your local dealer and actually have a better, session with that particular component. And so I brought it in. You did your thing, which I still am blown away by the level of performance that the speaker displayed in its early days with me, prior to your arrival, I should say, was nothing close or anywhere near remotely close to what I heard once you were done with it. So everyone that has been coming into my room, and if you've been following my videos, guys, you should have seen a couple of people in here who have had the opportunity to hear the speaker, and it's just a really well put together system. And you can tell it's not only the system, it's it should go without saying that Damon's fingerprints are all over the setup. And so that matters so much. And I don't think enough is said out and about the importance of the tuner. Like with a car, a lot of people are great at bolting on parts on cars, intakes, exhausts. But what matters the most is who is the tuner, who is doing the tuning of that computer, right? Because that's the dude that really should take, the most it's one of the most important components of bolting on parts in any car, right? Because if you do a terrible job, you blow up that engine. So with loudspeakers, I think it's the same. Like you can spend all the money in the world in parts, but if you don't have the right guy, the right person behind it, doing the right thing, and obviously your knowledge was beyond tested, in my opinion, in my room, because what I heard here is something that, I don't recall ever experiencing in the past. But I used it not just to improve upon the performance of the Ultra 7. I also used it for my own knowledge, because I got to see with my eyes and I got to hear, how much more you can gain by having someone that knows what they're doing set up your system.
It can transform it dramatically. You're right. It can sound like a different system. Yeah.
It's not even close. But I know that my audience, including myself, we want to buy our loudspeakers. We want to do our own toe-in. I get it, right? Because it's part of the fun. It's part of the fun. But I can't stress it enough. Those of you who are watching us today, if you have currently any pair of loudspeakers, regardless of the brand, if you know someone that knows what they're doing when it comes to loudspeaker setup, I would encourage you to really look into that. Look into perhaps having someone that knows more than you do when it comes to loudspeaker setup come into the room and give you a hand. It's money well spent. I promise you. There is always more to be squeezed out of your system when you hire someone that knows more than you do when it comes to system setup. It's so important. But I always knew it was important. However, never knew that it would be this drastic, this much of a difference. The moment these speakers are no longer here, and as my audience knows, and I've been very open with them, I can't keep everything forever. I run a YouTube channel. My audience, gets bored of the same. So I gotta always turn the page every so often. I can't stress it enough. The moment they walk out of here, when these speakers are no longer here, they'll take with them music as well. The music will walk out with the speakers. It's just I need to mentally prepare for that new chapter in my life, right? So I think I had a brief discussion a few days ago with someone else who talked about the customer service experience about Von Schweikert loudspeakers. So besides that, and I want to make sure I look at my notes as well, I want you to talk about the customer satisfaction with Von Schweikert, keeping a tight dealer network. You don't have a lot of dealers in the country. Yes. If you can tell us one of the reasons why that is, as well as the need to not have to release new models every 3 to 5 years, as many other loudspeaker brands do. Talk a little bit about that, Damon.
Okay. Well, if for those that watched the interview we did during the setup time, the live stream you and I did, my partner Gary Leeds was with us, and I think he did a great job of kind of explaining. I can go into all the technical stuff and our philosophies and how we do loudspeaker design, but I think Gary did an amazing job of explaining the intentional differentiation we have in our business model for Von Schweikert Audio. He'll say that we're not trying to be the biggest loudspeaker designer, but we do want to strive to be the best. And part of that, obviously, is loudspeaker design. It's how we approach and manufacture, fit and finish, bespoke, automotive finishes, all that kind of stuff. But what's really important to us is satisfaction, right? We are, the way we think about it is we're not just selling speakers, we're selling an experience. That's what gets you into this hobby. And we want to make sure we deliver as much of that experience in your room as possible. Part of that is, my father's philosophy of room integration, but it's also in the business model. We've had, 80 dealers in the past just for Von Schweikert audio before even, other iterations of our family's business where there was large numbers of dealers. We don't think that really services our customers at the end game. We think that when you're investing in such a big purchase, right, as loudspeakers, and especially at these price points, you don't have to have 3 dealers in your hometown to find out if the speaker is going to be best for you. We think that people will travel a little bit, within an hour to 2 hours, either by car, by air, to come demo a speaker to find out if it's going to be the right fit for them. Keeping that tight, smaller dealer network allows us to do a much better job of partnering with people who are like-minded, that are not just writing an invoice and then saying, hey, if you got any problems, call the manufacturer. No, they're going to go in, they're going to do that setup that you are talking about. We spend a lot of time and we're fortunate to work with people that share our vision of doing that in-room setup, getting the speakers to perform at their fullest. And we spend a lot of time working with our dealers and training them on how we do setup. In addition to that, when I talk about our business model, we're very aware that there's rarely any current production Von Schweikert speakers being sold on the secondhand market. I like to think that the reason that is we take people off the treadmill. They're experiencing what they got into this for, and now they're not chasing something, and they're very happy. So they keep their speakers. And then last but not least, and this is intentional, we don't design our speakers out of current standard every 18 months to 24 months to make a Mark III or a Mark VI. Yes, we do iterations on them, but we're doing them 8 to 10 years, which we think is on general what a customer is going to want to keep their speakers for before they even start thinking about what's out there. We don't do small little incremental changes like a new tweeter or whatever. We look for not evolutionary, but revolutionary upgrades that you across the spectrum, this is a much more evolved design before we come out with the next Mark iteration. And that's easy to see. So those are factors that are also affecting the secondhand market, because we're not making our speakers defunct or old prematurely. And at the end of it, I think it's respectful of the customer's investment.
Absolutely. And I like that you're touching on that. There are many, many other brands out there that love to release new models. You know what? We have a new upgrade for this. It's going to cost you $4,000. We have a new batch of capacitors. We have a new driver that we developed. And I'm going to be very honest with you, my audience watching me, folks, a lot of it is just repackaged components. A lot of it is just a repackaged product. And you're being told it's a completely new design, but yet you look at it and it looks identical. Like it's the same identical shape, the same identical look. It's the same size, the same dimensions, which happen to be, by the way, and I'll say it, one of the biggest problems I had with the AIDA Sonos Faber speakers. The AIDA 1 is identical to the AIDA 2, identical looking speaker, right? Yes, of course, the AIDA 2 weighs, I think it's like 200 pounds more. So they have a bigger magnet structure on the drivers. There's a lot more internal bracing that happened. I get it. But for me, I'm gonna tie back to what Damon said. If you're releasing models every 3 years, every 4 years, I feel like that brand, whether it be a loudspeaker brand, an amplifier brand, whoever, preamplifier, electronics of any kind, I feel like you shortchanged me to begin with. You knew exactly what that upgrade path was, and you failed to deliver it from the beginning. You had it in your back pocket the whole time. The whole time. You were just trying to extract, you were trying to get me to pay for your preliminary product, and then the final product, which was already probably designed, you already had it. You were just waiting to release it and hit me back up for money again. And so I love knowing that when you make a product, it's because you felt this is as good as it gets given this budget that I'm trying to hit, because let's face it, there are budget restrictions, right? You can't put the best of the best at a $20,000 price point, and then you have models that are $300,000. clearly that speaker has a certain budget to hit. It's not going to have the best parts, but it will have a lot of the technology, the philosophy that, in this case, Von Schweikert believes in. It'll have the DNA. It'll have, the same care and attention to detail as the bigger siblings, right? Because this is something that I had a conversation with Gary about, which is, it doesn't matter the price point of the speaker you're buying from us. We are going to spend the same amount of time in quality control and make sure that that speaker is done and put together to the same standards as our flagship model, for example. It'll be the same. So I want to make sure that I reemphasize this. Okay, it doesn't matter how much money you're spending. It matters. What matters is the attention to detail that brand has given that product that you're buying. Because let's face it, even $20,000 is a lot of money today. It's a lot of money for a lot of people, and I understand that. So I want to make sure that you understand that if you're buying a $20,000 or a $30,000 Von Schweikert speaker, they have spent countless hours on that speaker, and they have tested the hell out of that speaker. They have polished it. They have painted it with the same attention to detail as that $350,000 or $400,000 Ultra 11 that they make, which is their flagship. Okay. Last but not least, I know a lot of you love to be looking at the secondhand market. You're not going to find an Ultra 7 on Audiogon. You're not going to find one on eBay. If you are thinking there's going to be one, you need to get off that cloud right now. Okay. These speakers are not like mass produced like some other brands like Revell loudspeakers. You're not going to find it. Okay. I am telling you the experience that you're going to go through with Von Schweikert when you buy from a dealer, a qualified dealer, which is why they don't have a lot of dealers. It's not because they cannot get a lot of dealers. I'm sure they can if they wanted to, but it's because you want to stay focused and you want to stay close to those dealers that have the best intention and the best plans for the brand. Those dealers that are focused on the brand, those dealers that want to get out there and really give it the best customer experience possible. Plus, remember, they are made in California. And I guarantee you, if you call, more than likely you can get a hold of Damon right here to answer your questions. And that's what you want when you put your hard-earned money into a product that you believe in. You want to get answers. And in this case, you can get answers from Damon himself if you wanted to.
Well, one thing real quick, Jay, if I could add to that, just as an additional perspective, okay? Because I'll admit, even with my father, there were times where we worked really hard on a design, a couple of years, and we launch it. And, just because you launch a design the materials market does not end. New products come out. And I remember one time specifically, 6 months later, my father's like, oh, we could improve the rear tweeter. I found this and it sounds really good. I'm like, whoa. So, that those updates do come out later, but I said, that's, it's only been 6 months. That's wonderful. It's evolutionary. It's not revolutionary. We're going to put it in the vault and we're going to save that. And as we collect more materials in 8 years, whatever, 10 years, then we'll come out with that next Mark II. So yes, I think some of it is driven by a business model, but I think some of it also is just happenstance, upgrades or improvements come along, and we are thoughtful about how we approach a Mark X design, right?
Sure.
So.
Yep. Okay, so another question. I'm going to move on to another question here that I think has been one of the most asked questions by many of my followers. Okay, I've gotten a lot of emails with regards to this. Sure. And that is, how do you feel about active speakers versus passive speakers? And that is, of course, because you offer both versions of, in this case, the Ultra 7, and I'm sure other models. Give us a little bit of the trade-offs, your opinion on active versus passive loudspeakers.
Right. Well, okay. So I want to clarify, and this can be a challenge because the word active has a lot of other thoughts behind it or methodologies, let's say. Again, to us, the signal is the most important thing. One of our philosophies is that a loudspeaker cannot improve a signal. It can only degrade it. So we're doing everything we can to degrade it as little as possible. I always call it the footprint. We don't want to have a footprint on that signal. Some approaches are, involve DSP when you talk about active, and we're not doing that. We have an analog approach And that analog approach, if we're talking specifically about foundation, is we put an amplifier between your power amplifier and our analog network, which drives our woofer section. We do all of that to just put a gain control. So it's just about leveling the speaker. If you pulled that foundation amplifier out of there, the network is exactly the same. We're just giving you a gain control. So we knock down your signal. It's the signal from your amplifier. We do a really nice, I think, elegant solution of isolating our amplifier from yours with a transformer. But other than that, we just step it down, and then we amplify it again with that volume control. And so from top to bottom, when you listen to our speakers, if you have a tube amplifier, if you chose CH over solution because of the sound characteristics, you're going to hear that top to bottom. So it's not gonna, that's so important. I mean, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about setting up your system is we got to hear a lot of electronics. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing. If I could share a demo with people interested in our speakers, I really want them to hear them on diversely different sounding electronics and front end, so that they can see how much the speakers change. To me, that demonstrates that we're achieving what we're trying to achieve, which is having the least amount of footprint, the least amount of voice of von Schweikert on it. If anything, the only voicing we want is to remain musical with as much resolution as possible, but remain musical. But that's it. Otherwise, we want to get out of the way of why you chose the electronics you chose. And when people experience that, that's when they decide, okay, you know what? I wasn't thinking about foundation, but now I have to have them because I know the performance gain is going to be so much better for me. Because, and I say this all the time, the room is going to have the final say on what your system sounds like. And you can spend an enormous amount of money on acoustic treatment and risk, the law of unintended consequences. For everything you change intentionally, you're changing at least two other things unintentionally. And you can overdamp your room. You can put a lot of effort in trying to control one area, let's say the bass, and yet have a big impact on the mid-range and treble in your room with acoustic treatment. So why not treat it at the source with just an amplitude control?
Got it. So do you feel, in your opinion, that they both, active and passive speakers, have a place, or is it more about, you know what, I only have low power amplifiers, I don't want to buy these big heavy monsters, so I'm going to buy the active version? In this case, when I say active, I mean the bass section of the speaker. Right. How do you feel? What would be the reason as to why you created passive versus active speakers, in your opinion? Why would that be? Why do you give people two choices?
This may be because it's preference. That's what it comes down to. Okay. I personally, having experienced both, I'm always going to choose the foundation, just because I know, even if it's only a 10% improvement, wow, that 10% can be really impactful when you're talking about these types of systems we're talking about, right? Yep. Double digit, that's big.
Yes.
But I can understand that some people just, for whatever reason, it's not attractive to them, and we don't want to. We build and design the speaker, and maybe this is important, worth sharing. We design it passively, of course. I mean, it's 100%. It's a complete design, and we stamp off the network and everything in passive. Okay. Then we integrate the power amplifier foundation technology, and we're voicing it right next to the passive version. So, and again, if we do it right, and I think we demonstrated that with your different electronics and how it changed top to bottom sonically, we're doing a great job of just getting out of the way of the signal and give you that amplitude control. And I think as market acceptance becomes greater, like it has with, the VR30s, I wouldn't have thought 100% of them would go out with foundation, but they did. So wow. I think we've done a better job of demonstrating it, like demos like yours. I think if people are starting to, and then once once you experience it, I think it was really cool. When I did the setup for Andrew Quint, the Absolute Sound, for his review on the VR30, I approached that like I said, I'm going to treat you like one of our dealers would treat a client. We're going to go through the setup together. We're going to get the imaging where it's best. And, you will be the arbiter of that. I'll get to the baseline, and then you let me know where it could be improved. And then once that's done, dialing in the bass takes 30 minutes, an hour, maybe at most, unless, so it's very quick. And yeah, I think he discussed that in his review and how unique it was. So once you experience it, it's kind of hard to go backwards,
Yeah, very true. And something else that I am still trying to comprehend, which I've had a few emails from several subscribers, and that is, Jay, why the hell do you use those monstrous Apex monoblocks with a speaker that has an active bass section? What kind of sense does that even make, Jay? All this power for a speaker that should easily be driven by a 75-watt tube amplifier. And my reasoning is, well, I'm going to ask you this. Have you seen any of the Griffin demos with the Apex monoblocks? They use these gigantic loudspeakers that are also active, right, on the bass section, right? And so I'm like, so I'll tell you this, and maybe some people here may not know this. The speaker is capable of literally telling you that footprint, as you call it, the footprint of the partnering amplifier when it comes to the low registers. I hear the difference. When I go from Solution to CH to Griffin, I can detect which one has more bottom end, which is leaner. The speaker is able to tell you that. Even though they have an active bass section, somehow it feels as if when they put a bass heavy amplifier on the back of that speaker, I feel like someone went to the back of the speaker and turned the knob, the bass section, to the right a couple of clicks. You can hear that, which I think is fantastic. How is that achieved, Damon? Tell us how you're able to pull that off.
I can say that I think the part of the equation that isn't obvious, right, until you do it a lot, is it's about overhead. You having more overhead with your electronics. Yes, absolutely. I powered this with a 13-watt SET. You can run it with much less power, and there's some beautiful pairings that can happen with that. So no shade on that. But if you have the ability to have a larger amplifier, well, guess what? When you're running it at your listening level, it's barely breaking a sweat. It's not going to introduce as much distortion as if it's working at 80% of its ability, right? So the nuance that you can perceive is much greater. Relatively speaking, and I'm talking from a background when power was very expensive, especially in the 80s and 90s, right? Power is cheaper now. So we always recommend, and it's also about speed and control too. Stopping and stopping power and all these factors, the jump factor, all this stuff comes into play when you're talking about what size amplifier you want to pair with the speaker. Also the room, the physics come into play. What kind of air you're displacing and all that kind of stuff. So it's all interrelated, but generally speaking, I think it's better to have more power than less, specifically from headroom perspective and how distortion might be introduced into a system. That said, we benefit from some of the lowest distortion electronics in the history of this industry right now. So it's really quite wonderful. You have a lot of options, and it ultimately comes down to individual preference, like everything else.
All right, cool. I'm going to pause now, and we're going to transition into some of these questions that we have in the chat. Okay. If you have any questions for him, this is your opportunity, your chance to be heard, okay? So post them right now. I'm going to go down all these questions so that Damon can address them. Before I get started, you know what to do. Hit the like button. Please subscribe. Support the channel. I appreciate every one of you being here with us today. It means a lot to me. Yeah. And do not forget to check out my website, jaysaudiolab.com, for used high-end audio components, okay? So let's get right into it, Damon. First question, I will post it right now. Will we ever see a larger version of the Endeavor SE?
Okay, I can't say never, of course.
Of course, it's hard.
It's people. I hope you understand. I hope they know. I mean, we only produce stuff that we're excited about. We're kind of geeky, we love this stuff.
Yeah.
And we start seeing drivers and something new sparks our imagination, and we start, we're the first fans of whatever design we come up with. It's driven by passion and excitement, and people need to understand we don't design anything because the market says you have to have it, and that's just a good business choice, so do it. We saw an opening, a big giant hole in our line between the Endeavor SE and at that time the VR55, and we said, you know what, we've got it. We do have to address this from a business standpoint. But once we started working on the VR30 was a passion project. I mean, we gave it the nickname the Mini Ultra 7 for a reason, and we were trying to trickle down as much of that, make it as attainable as possible to put the Ultra 7 in your home at a fraction of the price, right? So the SE, or what we call the Model 1 now, is our entry level price point. In US retail, it's $27,000 a pair, and that comes in the same automotive finishes that we do our flagships in. But there's between 27 and 53, which is where the passive version of the VR30 is, and 59 with the foundation. There's another big hole. So yes, we are fixating on that space. And I will also say we never stop designing. There's always something being worked on. We have a pretty robust development team and process, and you don't let that go to waste. Even though we're going to go 8 to 10 years before we reintroduce, let's say, a specific model, there's other ones that are coming up for address, and also we have to look at those holes in the line. So the short answer is yes, we're working on new models at the moment. So.
Great. All right, next question is, hi Damon, can you share the crossover points for the Ultra 5s? I don't see them on the website.
Yeah, we don't share those crossover points. It's
okay.
It's our design, and I mean, I'm very happy about how we cross over, and we wouldn't put it out there if we weren't happy with the crossover points. As far as integration, let's say with if you're doing some type of subwoofer or super tweeter module or something, that's easily integrated, just by professional setup. But yeah, we do keep those proprietary.
Okay, cool. Next question is here's Ron. It says the foundation goes down to 8 hertz. Is this in room, or how are you able to go that low?
Well, okay, so those are anechoic measurements, or those are test measurements, and yeah, I mean, we in room is a little different, and we try to be very accurate in our measurements. We want when things are tested, we want people to have pleasant surprises. But yeah, they are quite good in the test environment and in the room environment. As a matter of fact, you experienced them yourself. Although we use them in the cancellation mode, right? But yeah, we're canceling frequencies down there.
Yeah, they were fantastic in here. They opened up a whole new world in me, and they definitely highlighted my room issues. Because when I turned them off, I heard more of the room, and it's and the influence that the room has when it comes to my bass, not just the bass. I think everything, including the mid range, you get to hear that effect, the negative effects of a room. Which, let's be honest, no room is perfect. We're gonna have issues, especially where you sit. That can either add or subtract certain frequencies, right? So knowing that the job you did with the subs in here really took my system to a whole new level. It was just more linear across the frequency range. And so, yes, I can definitely speak about the shock waves and their importance in my system. So let's see the other question. Okay, this is from Scott Clark. Damon, I used to sell Roy, audio designer. Joe, I don't know who that guy is. Joe says all distortion in a driver is because of the magnet motor. Should all the speaker designers ideally dampen the magnet motor, I guess, on a driver? So how do you feel about that?
You know, I don't agree that it's all motor related. There's a lot of distortion that can come from the cone, the suspension, what have you. But yeah, identifying distortion in drivers is critical for network. Well, for design integration. You know, everything distorts at some frequency typically. So what in one of the design philosophies that still rings in my mind whenever we work on a new design that my father said is, and it sounds kind of hippy dippy, but he says, you got to listen to the driver. And what he meant by that is don't be arrogant as a loudspeaker engineer and think that you can make the driver do something that it's not going to be good at. Okay. You know, that's a lot of hubris there. I mean, there's a lot of hubris in design to begin with, right? I can do it better and therefore I'm going to do it, whatever. But no, I think you have to be very respectful, and distortion is integrated in a lot of different ways, whether it's in the network topology, the transducer design to begin with. But that's the art is trying to identify where the driver is going to work optimally, and if that will integrate with the other drivers, and so on and so forth. It's a very integrated, multifaceted challenge.
All right, cool. Another question from Razor. You're using off-the-shelf drivers. What would you change of any of the drivers if it was possible?
Well, I guess it depends on designs, because not all of our designs are off-the-shelf drivers. But I will say this, and you know, my dad started in the industry professionally. I mean, he was doing his own loudspeaker designs in '75, but he got a gig doing transducer design. And, you know, so he was very passionate about it. He understood it. But later in life, you know, I mean, there's people that spend every day doing transducer design. They are extremely skilled at it. And we're lucky in that, you know, we've developed enough of a reputation that companies will send us their designs, their prototypes, for us to both look at, to integrate, but also to give feedback on. And we've given numerous transducer companies feedback in the beta stage that ultimately became part of their standard off-the-shelf production line. But ultimately, we focus on loudspeaker design, and we depend on, in my opinion, the best. We can be selective. We choose the best transducers by design model, whatever we're trying to achieve, both in performance and ultimately in cost for you know, because there's a parts budget to every design we do. And part of that skill set, I would say mastery, is spending that budget appropriately. And transducers are obviously a big factor in that. And there's a lot of inherent costs in going off and designing your own transducers. And there's something to be said for having people that spend all their time working on it. So we're happy to incorporate them. But no, short answer is several of our designs, especially the entire VR and Ultra line, incorporate proprietary drivers as well as off-the-shelf designs.
All right, cool. So here's an interesting question. They're asking about the bass section. Does the active bass section work in a similar way as REL subs with the high-level neutral speak on input direct? So basically, I guess they're trying to see if it's similar to the way REL subs are incorporated to a sound system. Is that how you incorporate your subs?
It's similar, but distinctly different. As a matter of fact, I just did a setup for a gentleman that had REL subs, and I had the pleasure of integrating them into the front end in a reinforcement mode. So, and yes, we were using the high level, in this case, speak-ons, but we were coming directly off of the speaker output terminals on the base section, right? So, yeah, we want that high level. We want the signature of your electronics first and foremost across the entire frequency spectrum. Also, we want the speed. When you, in my opinion, when you come off of the preamp, you're at a different speed than you are if you're coming directly off the amplifier. Or off the speaker binding post. In this case, it's fully integrated, and once you dial it in, it's integrated. The differences, I would say, between the REL and our foundation amplifier, subwoofer amplifiers, is, for one, we isolate our network, our amplifier with step-down transformers. And why that's important is adaptability. Our foundation plate amps in the Ultra 7 or the foundation subwoofers, they don't care how the designer of your electronics grounded their amplifier. So there's not going to be any type of adverse interactions with our electronics and your electronics. In addition to that, because we're isolating it, you can invert the phase on the inputs for our foundation subs. And why that's important is, REL has a phase switch, 0 or 180. We have a rotary dial, and we go from 0 to 180. So we got many settings in between those 2 points. And then if you invert the inputs on the foundation subs, now you can go 180 through 360. And ultimately, when you're integrating a subwoofer, especially a fast subwoofer that needs to be just as fast as those in your main towers, you want to be able to get the phase perfect, so that it's fully integrated and matched. We also have frequency, like they do. We have frequency, phase, amplitude, obviously, and then we have an LF adjust and cut that allows you to either boost or cut if needed, because some rooms will amplify certain frequencies or suck out, in which case you have to adjust for that as well. So there are some significant differences in how we approach it. And lastly, our foundation subs are slot ported, which gives us just an added level of control when integrating with your system. Okay, so there's some significant differences.
I see that. Now, this is something that I meant to ask you while you were here. Can we expect a fully active speaker?
I definitely won't say no. Because here's the thing. It would seem foolish for me to say no, and then at some point it's right for us. And it's emerging. It's the emerging technology. I was asked in an interview, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, and for some reason this is stuck in my head. There was this assumption from the interviewer that it's all been done. Everything's been done. We've reached the pinnacle of loudspeaker design, and is there really much more to do? And I'm like, my perspective is completely the opposite. I think we're in relatively a crude situation in relationship to loudspeaker design. I think there's much more meat on the bone that we have yet to discover.
Yep.
And as technologies emerge and become more sophisticated, we are all over that. I mean, materials alone have advanced this industry dramatically in the last 25 years. Not just our loudspeakers, everybody's. With electronics and the lowering distortion and control. My point is, never say never. Never say never. We have a robust design team, and we're always looking for the next big thing. So we shall see, but not in the next 6 months. How about that?
I predict, just to add more context, of course, that's my opinion. I think every loudspeaker brand has to definitely be taking notes of where this whole entire fully active fully active loudspeaker conversation is going to be headed, because ultimately, if the market is demanding it, And we see there's a segment that continues to grow where maybe the younger generations that do not have the money to buy the crazy cables and the crazy amplifiers. That doesn't mean they may not have the funds to buy a speaker that's fully active and that sounds pretty good. That's one. Part two is these new homes, these new modern homes, they don't want to see 6 amplifiers, 12 chassis in between the speakers. I mean, they are part of a different type of living room space where, you know, they just want to see 2 pretty good looking speakers and be able to control them from your phone. So I do think that segment will continue to grow. And I even predict that we could go as far as saying that eventually one will have to make a decision between a really good sounding, fully active loudspeaker that actually sound amazing and one that's not active, one that's passive. And the determining factor will be, do I want to tune my system the way I like it, right, by using electronics, or do I want to be done and just use something that sounds amazing right out of the box? And there will be 2 different types of demographics. Truth be said, many people don't have the time to embark on doing the trials that most of us audiophiles do today with different electronics. A lot of people just want something that doesn't turn on their OCD, right? Doesn't really give them the opportunity to do a lot of fine tuning, but they definitely want killer performance. They definitely want to just have a product that's well made, that sounds mind boggling, and that they are like, you know what? Could I get something a little better if I went with the passive version? Yeah, but this sounds so amazing, so incredible, and it fits my lifestyle, which is one of the most important things to them, that I don't want to embark on doing boxes because this fits my lifestyle and my family's lifestyle. My wife can actually play music without her blowing up an amplifier, right? Or doing something crazy. So,
well, if I can. Yeah, I want to add to that. You know, I'm a student of history. I'm a fan of learning from the past, and it reminds me of this question. Reminds me of when, you know, when we transitioned from a freight industry that was all boat based to trains. A lot of companies closed down. They didn't make the transition because they were shipping companies. They weren't freight handling companies. I look at it, what we do is, you know, our expertise is in loudspeaker design, and we have a certain standard that we look to maintain in performance, right? But we'll look at so if we approach it from that standpoint, absolutely. If there's the ability to achieve our performance goals and yet satisfy the market in developing a new speaker solution, especially like you said, lifestyle. I think that's a very key word, and being mindful of new consumers. Then we have the right. I think we have the appropriate mindset for the future, right?
Yep.
So,
here is a good question. Any thoughts about bringing back a large stand mount speaker with some of the trickle down technology that you have in the other speaker? So that's something that I asked Gary while he was here. If you had any plans, because I do believe there is opportunity there for the brand to, you know, perhaps, you know, some people don't have the space and they like, and you have those near field listeners, right? That they love stand mounts. That's their thing. So talk to us about that.
The short answer is we're definitely looking. Yes, we're more than looking. We're very interested in it as well. You know, we have a long history of doing stand mount speakers. One of our most popular designs when it comes to total units sold was our Unifill line, and it was a full range, no compromise monitor that you know we would set them up at a show for the Sunday morning, you know, for certain people to hear, and people would walk in. They're right in between our main floor standing speakers, and people assumed the floor standing speakers were playing. So yeah, no, we're definitely looking at that as well.
Well, that's good to know. And here is a good one. Why are your speakers not omnidirectionals in the mid-range? It's only a front firing mid-range. You don't have any mid-range in the rear of the speaker. What would be the reason?
Right. You know, I guess there's a lot of parts of that, but ultimately, something that sticks out in my mind is less is more. the mid-range and the woofer frequencies do a great job of spherically launching from the front baffle. If you look, okay, so something that I think is pretty evident when you look at our speakers, we're all about minimum diffraction baffles, right? So it's all about that wave propagation. The mid-range has no problem, as you've experienced yourself. Jay, I think I remember when I was there, I told you, stand in between the speakers next to those amplifiers. So, you know, if you ever get the chance to hear our speakers in a dealer's demo or at a show, I encourage you to walk around, get it 90 degrees outside the speaker range, and you'll know that the mid-range is definitely linear at that extreme position. So if it is, then there's no reason to have that rear firing one. We're just, you know, the upper frequencies that specifically in the tweeter range are the most focused, tight frequency range. So we just fill it out on the back end with our air network. That's the whole purpose of it. And by the way, I think it's important to note, if you're not familiar with it, we have an amplitude control on that driver or series of drivers. In the case of the 7, there's both a magnesium horn-loaded tweeter as well as a ribbon super tweeter. And we put an amplitude control in there because it's all about balance. And if you have a highly reflective wall or you're right near it, then, excuse me, you're going to need less of that. Or if it's extremely damp, you may want more. But you integrate it just like you do a super tweeter. So you start with setup with it off. And then once you've got the speakers where you like them and everything sounds good, you slowly bring it on with a piece of recording that you're familiar with until you actually hear it. And then you can back off of that one position. But as Jay knows, some people may want a little bit more, and they can augment the upper frequencies with that as well. So,
yeah, no doubt. I mean, one of the biggest strengths, if I were to highlight a strength about the speaker, is the mid-range. It's been, I remember having David Caceres, who came to visit me. You guys saw that video. I posted it online. I remember when he sat in the room, first minute, he looked at me and he said, the mid-range, oh my God. He's like, the mid-range is just incredible with this speaker. It's just, again, part of it is what you did here too, Damon. Of course, you know, you're working here with the speaker setup, but it's so like beautiful, revealing, focused. It really, it's just a whole new level of a mid-range. The clarity there, the articulation. I felt for once, finally, you know, sometimes there are some songs out there, especially like rock, and you know, where there's a combination, a blend of instruments going off at the same time with the lead singer putting out lyrics. I actually felt a very nice sorted mid-range where the mid-range didn't get buried by the guitars or the drums or whatever. It was there. I can actually make out the lyric. To me, that was so awesome to hear that, to hear the articulation and the level of realism that the speaker has. Again, I'm just talking about the mid-range at this point. It was just phenomenal. I mean, I would say it doesn't take a backseat to anybody else. And that's really been an impressive experience with the Ultra 7s. And I am sure that this translates, of course, to a lesser degree, but I'm sure it translates to the more affordable models, right? So there's that's something you really need to be on the lookout for when you buy a Von Schweikert speaker. The mid-range is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Let me see. Here's another question: why a bass reflex design and not use passive radiators with your
right? I mean, you know, it's just a matter of implementation. You know, that's the other thing. I think if you look at our designs, especially over the decades, we're agnostic. You know, we try to leave, when it comes to design, we try to leave a lot of our baggage at the door. So, you know, we've made planars, we've made transmission lines, we've you know, and there may be a time where one of those designs works well, a passive radiator. That's, you know, but for right now, with our designs and what we're working on, you know, they don't factor in. You know, speed is one of the most important things in lowering distortion, and speed is, to me, is not just starting but stopping, and the magnet structure, having the magnet structure there And the way we do our aperiodic vent, and that's the thing that's important to understand. Our venting looks somewhat traditional, and it's not. It's all about implementation. Everything is about implementation, right? And we implement our designs the way we do. We do an aperiodic vent, so we launch very quickly and we stop very quickly without distorting those drivers because of how we damp. We use 3 different levels of damping material internally, and then whatever pressure is left over, it just floats out the port tube. So that's how we achieve that front edge on the bass notes, the texture, the vibrato. It's all because it's stopping and starting very quickly, and that's what we're looking for in our designs.
All right. Here's an interesting question. How smooth is the directivity and on-axis response on the Ultra 7?
The on-X, it's very smooth. I mean, that's one of the things I really enjoy is while we don't point the speakers at you, because of our off-axis response, which is linear, or at least as linear as we can make it, you can have the speakers with no toe in or just a little bit of toe in.
Yep.
But what's lovely, and Jay, you've got those 3 chairs set up there, or people have couches or whatever. You can be on axis of the speaker, and it doesn't sound any different than if you move a seat over to off axis. That's what having a linear off axis response should be. The speakers we don't beam the signal at your ears. We're propagating a linear wave launch.
Here's another use case for those of you that are looking for a loudspeaker that not only works great in a 2-channel environment, but also home theater environment. These speakers right here, and I am sure, again, the rest of the models are the same. So how many times do you guys watch a movie and you sit there and you wish that your wife or significant other was getting the same experience as the sweet spot?
Yeah.
Many times, right? Many of you sometimes feel bad because you feel as if the wife is only hearing the speaker that's directly in front of her or him, right? And so with these, you don't have that effect. There is absolutely, you're not feeling shortchanged when you're seated off to the right or off to the left. Now, is the sweet spot going to always be slightly better? I would say so because it's centered, right? But when you're off to the right and off to the left from this speaker behind me, I've never felt as I have felt in the past with other speakers where you're leaving something on the table when you move from that center position. Yeah. I don't really feel like I'm missing anything. It's like if there's anything, it's so slight that your mind forgets about it because you feel so connected. I still feel the same stereo imaging when I'm seated off to the right or off to the left. It's a really cool feeling. And not only that, but also in the room, as you walk around the room, many of you that do consultations with me are telling me, well, this is the system that I have. And sometimes I have, Jay, music in the background because I'm doing stuff around the house. I'm cleaning. I'm taking care of different things. This speaker right here will make you get the same feel or experience when you're walking around the room, when you're doing things in the corner, when you're, putting things together in the room. You get that same feeling with the speaker. It's such a great feel because it just fills the space with sound everywhere. It's a really cool feeling. Usually when you get behind certain speakers or in front, not that you normally would, but we know that sometimes we got to listen to music as we do other things in the house. You lose a lot of that effect with many other brands. That's not really the case. Some speakers command your presence right in front of the speaker for you to hear the speaker. This is not going to really ask you for that. You're still going to get a good feel for the spaciousness, the detail, the airiness all throughout the room, which is really something that we need to pay close attention to and emphasize is how much detail and the top end extension that the speaker has is just impressive. Impressive.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a question that I was looking at while you were going on in answering the previous question, Damon. I could easily say, but you can correct me, this is just an opinion. I'm going to say no, they're not going to provide tuning services for a secondhand loudspeaker, but I would say don't get it confused with No, they're not going to help you if you have questions. If you call the
Mhm.
factory, I am sure they're going to pick up the phone, because ultimately it is a Von Schweikert speaker no matter what. So it
Right.
is their baby, right? So I would say support would still be there as far as like giving you pointers. But
Right.
if you wanted the full blown experience, you have to work with a dealer.
Yeah. That's the key. The dealers, I would say, I think I can speak accurately for the dealers we work with. They want to assist you. They want to become a source of service for you, right? Because maybe if they assist you with the setup on that speaker and you're looking for something in the future, you can contact them. I will also say that it's not like there aren't used Von Schweikert models, because our dealers do take them in trade as people upgrade into the line. And I can tell you that they are definitely doing that same level of service when they're installing that traded in speaker that you purchased from us, or from them, I should say. So yeah, I mean, it's possible. It just depends. I would definitely recommend contacting your local Von Schweikert dealer.
Yep. Here's another question. Do you have any like an entry line planned for the future?
The best thing I can say is, the best thing I say is we are working on new designs, and we're looking at below the VR30, but nothing to announce at this point, guys. And development takes quite a while. If you're looking for a product right now, I would hope that you would find the Model 1 and the VR30 worthy of your considerations. Because that we are a relatively tight, small. We've been here a long time, speaker company, but we have so much throughput. And to Jay's point earlier, in I believe it, we're not going to launch anything quickly to just hit a price point. If we have to be passionate about it, and it has to perform as close to Jay's Ultra 7s as we can, like when we came out with the VR30 or the Model 1. So,
and of course, not that it isn't important for the brand to have an entry line, because remember, an entry line is also an entry point. It's equivalent to an entry point into the brand, and that's the start for many people. Once they live with a affordable model from a brand they love, you have them with under the umbrella. Right now, it's moving them up over time.
Right.
So it is an important, that product is always a very, very important product for a lot of brands to basically get you to own that particular product, whichever brand that may be, by the way. It doesn't have to be just Von Schweikert, but it's a really important part of any product portfolio. That entry point line is huge, more important than ever, I would say.
Very important.
And although it isn't really a part of the portfolio, the product portfolio that will, make you the same money, if we're being honest, make the same money for the brand as the elite flagship model would. It's not even about that. Now it's a different intention with that entry point line, which is to get you in the line.
That's absolutely true. I mean, I will reference back. I mean, I took over CEO in 2015, so we're 10 years in. The first model we came out with was the Ultra 11. All right. So we had reached a point where I felt we had revolutionary technology ready to introduce. We started at the flagship, and then we've come down with the 9, the 7, the 5, the 50, now the 30. So yes, we've been moving in that direction because it is important, right? But yeah, it's kind of nice that we're able to go from our flagship and trickle down as much as we can at attainable price points. And I think the VR30 is the current proof of concept, but we are always developing. So
yep, that is true. Here's another question. Is there a dual tower setup speaker with front firing subs instead of the rear used ones in the 9 and the 11 Ultra out of the question, or a possibility?
It's not out of the question, and certainly a possibility. Yes.
Okay, why don't you build the speakers as a fully active version? I mean, for $180K, you can build the finest amps and have the advantages of an active speaker.
I would say right now it's simply my preference of what can be achieved is there's still a lot of gold in that vein to mine when it comes to analog solutions. They're just, especially when it comes to the off-axis response and how we achieve soundstage. I think that we still have a lot more technology to develop in that regard. That said, we're looking at it. I mean, it's to say we're not a marketing company. At least we haven't been in the past. We've always, found our comfort zone in development and experimentation. And so we're always experimenting, developing, and looking at current technology. So it's not off the table, but at this point, what we're achieving with designs that like the Ultra 7, the 9, the 11, the 30, I think is quite remarkable. So, but who knows for the future?
All right. And this question, I'm going to take on this question. So, because clearly Damon is not going to speak on another brand, right? So I'm going to take on this question because I'm that dude. I'm that dude that has owned 9 pairs of Wilson Audios and about 9 or 10 pairs of Magicos. So I can speak on this at length, and I'm not going to do this to Damon and put him on blast and ask him that question. Okay?
Thanks.
But here's what I'm going to say. Okay. How do they compare to Wilson Audio? How does Von Schweikert, specifically the Ultra 7s, compare to the flagship models from Wilson Audio? And I said this before, if Magico and Sonos Fiber had a baby, it will be, in my opinion, the Von Schweikert, okay? Because this speaker has so much of both brands, okay? But what it doesn't have, and I have to be blunt, is the vice grip effect that Wilson Audio has. You got to be dead in the middle to really enjoy a Wilson Audio in its full glory. And I just got done explaining to you how amazing this speaker is with off-axis response, right? I just got done telling you that is not the case with a Wilson Audio speaker, unfortunately. That's never been the case. Anyone who believes that you're going to get incredible sound out of a Wilson Audio speaker when you're seated off to the right or to the left is delusional. I mean, they really need to get their mind checked, because that doesn't happen with a Wilson Audio speaker. Okay. So that's one thing where they are different. Another way of looking at them is when it comes to the flexibility of the Von Schweikert, you have far more flexibility. Now, I know with Wilson Audio, you do the time alignment. I know you take measurements from the tweeter to your head and then from your ear to the floor. I understand you get that tweakability with the Wilson Audio, but it is not the same as what you can achieve with the Ultra 7. Not only from, of course, the fact that you have the rear array where you can do the ambient enhancement, right, to add more of whatever it is that you're looking for, but also the bass output. If you have the active version of the Ultra 7, you can add more, or you can take away more of the bass, depending on your preferences. So you have that added tunability with the speaker that you really don't have with not just Wilson, but other loudspeakers that don't have an active bass section. Remember, when you are setting up a speaker that's fully passive, something you need to keep in mind is you're going to have a lot more trade-offs with that type of design, because let's just say you're looking for more bass output. We know what to do, right? Put the speakers closer to the boundaries to get more bass reinforcement. It's common sense. We all know that by now. I hope you do. But what happens is when you do that, sometimes you end up compromising other key areas of the sound reproduction, or the frequency response of the speaker. If you put the speakers too far apart, depending on the model, of course, to gain more bass and reinforcement, sometimes you might lose the mid-range. You begin to do this to the speaker, right? Or maybe you begin to make the rest of the frequency response on the speaker, or the frequency range of the speaker, sound a little more muddy, a little more blended, because you added too much bass reinforcement. And so what do? Okay, I got too much bass. Let me move the speakers farther from the walls to gain a little more clarity on the speaker, but you now lean out the bass. So you see how one thing affects the other, right? Well, with this particular speaker and what it does, remember, you don't have that trade-off, because if you're looking for more bass, and let's say they happen to have the best clarity, the best detail and extension when it comes to the top end, but you find them a little lean, you go to the back of the speaker, you reinforce that. with that adjustment. You don't have to give up that extra, top end and clarity that you're looking for. You really don't have that with passive speakers. It's a trade-off. You have to it's a compromise. You have to decide between, damn it, I wish I had more bass here, but I can't give up that mid-range where the speakers are positioned, right? So you leave them there, right? And learning to live with a leaner sound signature when it comes to bass output, right? You're not going to worry about that with the Von Stryker Ultra 7s. So another thing that I think I need to say very candidly is, I feel personally, and I've done a lot of consultations with many of you, you tend to have a problem with Wilson Audio's bass output if they're not in the proper room. Setup is critical with any speaker, not just Wilson Audio. Every speaker deserves proper speaker placement, not just them. But I do find more issues oftentimes with Wilson Audio speakers as far as bass. Okay, they need a wall behind them. I remember having the XVXs here, which are arguably one of the best speakers I've had in here. But I remember having to make compromises, at least in my room, maybe not in your room, but in my room. And I had to kind of always be like tinkering with, okay, can we move them back a little more to gain a little more bass? And mind you, those are big speakers, right? And I couldn't be anywhere near as satisfied as I am with the performance of these when it comes to the bottom end. And this is a much smaller loudspeaker. What does that tell you? What does that tell you, right? The tunability, the adjustment of the speaker is just so much better here than what I had with Wilson Audio. That's not to throw shade on Wilson Audio, because clearly, and I'll be honest here in front of Damon, they are the most successful loudspeaker, American loudspeaker brand we have. They are. And I'm not gonna lie about that. I'm saying it in front of Damon. They are the most successful American loudspeaker brand we have today. Shit, a lot of other brands rip a page out of their book every day to try to figure out what is it that they do right to be so successful. And that's a good thing to have, so it's not really talking negatively on their product, because I do believe they build a quality product. I do believe there's some amazing sounding speakers. This is why I've owned 9 pairs of Wilson. It's not by accident. I love what they do. I love the brand. I'm very proud to say that they're made in America. I really am. Just like I'm very proud to say that Von Stryker is made in America. But they are different speakers. They're different animals. Mm-hmm. You ultimately have to select your poison and what really checks your boxes. All I'm saying from this side of the camera is the fact that with the Von Stryker, you're going to have far or greater flexibility than many other loudspeakers out there in existence today. Hopefully that answered your question. Okay, so here's another one. Does he believe that speaker size and room size have to match or not so?
Short answer is yes, absolutely. We're talking physics, and as someone who, like I said, when I took over in 2015, I had the Ultra 11s to put on demo, and we went out and aggressively pursued the biggest rooms we could at all these shows. And it worked out great for the 11s and the 9s and then the 7s. And then, we're trying to show the Model 1 and such a big room. And we had some pretty good success. But I got to tell you, I kept telling my partners, you can't change physics, so pressurizing the room is important. Now, the nice thing is I can say that, the dealers that we work with, and if we end up consulting with a client, we will absolutely, we have people that approach us saying, I want the Ultra 9. And when we start to vet their system, which is what any good, look, if you're talking to a dealer and you say, I want this model, and they go into the close, right? Then, I don't know what kind of performance you're going to get, but I can say that if they back you up and say, whoa, let's talk about your room. Let's talk about your system. Why are you even talking to me? What are you missing from your current system? Those are questions that I think are critical to achieving your end goal of satisfaction. And having people that are willing to leave money on the table and say, the 9's not the one for your room. I think a 7 and a pair of Shockwaves at the back of the room are going to give you way better performance, or 30s or whatever it is, 50s, 5. These are important questions. In the room, the system, your budget, these things are all going to be factors in defining what is the right loudspeaker for you, whether it's a von Schweikert or another brand, right? So now I will say, pound for pound, our models integrate more. They're more adaptable to different room environments. Yes, you can put 11s in smaller rooms than you would realize because of the adjustability of the foundation subs, of the ribbon tweeter, the main tweeters, the rear array. Those can all be finely tuned. And there's something to be said, again, like headroom. There's something to be said having that line source with those woofers above your head, even in a small room with the appropriate amount of pressure level, can be breathtaking, right? So,
Yep.
but ultimately, our speakers are quite adaptable because of the technology we've employed. But still, there are certain rooms that are going to want certain designs more than others.
Right.
I hope that answers the question.
And then this brings us to the final part, which is it is no secret by now that you guys know I love the Shockwave subs. Shockwave subs have done some impressive things in my room. Again, the linearity of the room is just so much better. However, this is a question for Damon. Damon, are subs, your Shockwave subs, a must with your speakers?
No. I would say over the decades, most customers don't have the foundation room correction implementation of our Shockwaves that we're doing now. It's something we've done for years, and certainly, when I go to a show, I go to win. I'm highly competitive. I spend days setting up. It's how I've developed my setup skills, is because, and I analyze the room, and we bring treatment to help us get the best, because you never get a second chance at first impression.
Yep.
And that's also why we partner with the dealers we partner with, because they're going to spend and invest the same amount of time in setup, whether it's at a show or in your room, right? So those are really important to me. But the Shockwaves, what we're calling the foundation technology, and the Shockwaves at the back of the room, canceling that standing wave is critical to good performance. And as you experienced in your room, and I think that's a really powerful demo, and I do it at shows, is because you get the people that come in and they're looking at the system, and then they look back and they're Shockwaves, and they start, they're subwoofers, and they start talking. And I want to address that right away so that they understand how we're implementing them. They're not adding bass, not at all. As a matter of fact, they're removing unwanted bass pressure in the room, at the back of the room, that standing wave. And a very powerful demo is to go and turn them off. It's kind of profound. Just by correcting that standing wave, that you improve vocals and highs, because you're not introducing that distortive wave back into the room. So it clears up the entire frequency range. But that said, you can have phenomenal performance, but especially with our room integration of our foundation on the 30s and the 7s and whatever, then without the Shockwaves, as you can with. It's just an added step of performance. If it's in your budget, we hope you consider it. Especially if you get a chance to demo it, I think you'll understand what it brings to the table. But by no means is it required. And I would say the vast majority of our customers have not implemented that technology yet, just because of budget restrictions or whatever, or maybe space, who knows. But
and here's a good question. Von Schweikert, do they have dealers outside the United States, or is that exclusive to the US only?
Oh, no. As a matter of fact, we just got back from Munich, where myself and my business partner, Gary Lees, were very active in establishing a distribution network. We take the same methodology with international distributors and dealers as we do with domestic US dealers. Our goal is twofold, as far as from a business standpoint. We want to get on your short list of products you're considering when you're going to upgrade your loudspeakers. It's a big choice. You only have so much time to audition. So our goal is to be in your, on your short list of must hears. And then when you actually go hear it, we want you to get the best experience possible. So we want it to be, within easy travel, considering the importance of this purchase for you. But we'd also don't want to oversaturate. So we have a very clear vision of what our distribution channel looks like, and it definitely involves international dealers and distributors, which we currently have many, but we're still in the process of setting them up in some countries.
Awesome. Well, that brings it to an end today. Thank you for your time, Damon. It's been an incredible experience with the Ultra 7s in my room. Learned so much from you, of course, Gary, and living with your product. When I discovered it for the first time, actually, back in 2019, and then heard it in Munich a few years later, I got to tell you, I never forgot the product, never forgot the speaker, the performance, the musicality, the way it sucks you in, right? And now living with it for the last 3 months has been a really incredible experience. Also lets me know that there are so many quality products out there. And sometimes us as audiophiles, we are just it's kind of when you go to a restaurant and you just order the same meal over and over and over again. You never really bother to try something off the menu, something else that you may like more. I got to tell you that this loudspeaker brand is without a doubt one of the best loudspeakers here in the United States and worldwide. Many of you around the globe have emailed me telling me, expressing to me that you didn't know much about Von Schweikert until I put it up on my channel, until those videos began to surface on my YouTube, on this channel, right? And that you were thankful for showing you something different. And I'm glad that I have been able to do that. I'm glad that I've been able to give you sound clips, that I've been able to give you my impressions of the speaker, what it feels like to own an Ultra 7, and of course, the quality of the product and the company behind it. Because remember, the transaction doesn't end when you pay for the product. It's actually only the beginning. It's the relationship that follows after, when money passes hands and you have the product delivered, how that brand is taking care of you after that sale, how that brand is able to make sure that it's sounding as it should, as it was intended to do in your room. Okay. And I got to tell you that the way Von Schweikert handles that experience to me does not take a backseat to anybody else, does not take a backseat to any other brand that I've had here. They are definitely one of the best brands that money can buy. And of course, again, their attention to detail and the care they put towards every one of their products. If you've ever considered a Von Schweikert speaker, I encourage you to talk to one of your dealers. If you don't find a dealer in the part of the world that you are in, feel free to email them. Feel free to email Von Schweikert. I'm sure they'll put you in touch with the right person, with the right dealer, with the right individual that can make this purchase a possibility for you. Okay, there's always a way. Don't worry about it. Wherever you are, don't be afraid to reach out to them, send them a note. They're very responsive. That's another thing. They're not going to take a week to respond to your email. Okay, some brands out there that will go nameless, love to do that. They're not those. They don't have that mindset. Okay, if you have a concern, a question, something about the brand in general, email me too. I'll be able to I'll put you in touch with the right people. Okay. But if you had any concerns or any reservations about how good this speaker sounds, if it means anything, being the only YouTuber today that owns or has owned some of the best loudspeakers that money can buy, I can tell you, you have 100% a recommended product by me. I co-sign right under the bottom of the paperwork when it comes to how good of a product Von Schweikert is. Believe me when I say that. I wouldn't put my name behind it if I didn't believe in the product. And Von Schweikert has over-delivered what they promised me when we started talking last year in 2024 about making this experience a reality for me, okay? So once again, thank you, Damon, for your time, for your openness, for how down to earth you are, and obviously the fact that you're not afraid to put your face in front of the camera and answer my audience all their questions. It really means a lot to them as well. I'm sure I'm speaking for them. And I hope that we can continue to do more of this in the future. I hope that we can continue to drive more conversations and to see you at shows, and I can discover any new models that I'm sure you're working on right now that you're not telling me about. So I'm curious to know where you take this brand going forward, because from where I'm sitting, I don't see how much better it can get.
Well, if I may, I just want to say, on behalf of myself, my partner Gary Leeds, and the entire Von Schweikert team, we really appreciate what you've been doing. You know, not just for our product, but across the board. Having the product in your home, being an owner who listens to this stuff. I will say that, you know, I feel really lucky to still be in this industry all these years later. I enjoy every moment I get to do it. And it's only been because of word of mouth. We're not a marketing powerhouse, but, you know, I would say just because of the example of our existence, we obviously have been able to touch certain people and give them something that they need. And I can't thank you enough for giving the same type of word of mouth to your audience. It means a lot to us. So thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. And I really enjoy these conversations. So yeah, I like nerding out about music and stereos and speakers. So anytime.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for your time. Guys, please continue to subscribe and hit that like button. I will talk to you soon. Have a good rest of your weekend. Take care.
See ya.
Bye for now.